outgrowing the tank of life. Now we're going to cover some magic in this video, but we need to understand and cover some basics. Now we're going to be spending a lot of time together on this whiteboard, and this being the first video, you've got to give me some grace for my handwriting. I feel like it starts out like an optician. We're starting off big and then gradually it just got worse. So I'm going to share you knowledge, but on the basis that you've got to let me off with my handwriting. So with that due, we need to cover some basics. We need to lay the foundation, because ultimately how you start something is going to determine how you finish something. And a lot of these videos are going to be based off of my knowledge, my studying. A lot of this stuff I'm learning on a daily basis. So the whole idea with this channel is that as I grow and I learn something, I'm going to be applying it, I'm going to be journaling it, I'm going to be meditating on it. You guys are then going to get insight to that knowledge as well. So I don't necessarily want this to be a channel where you come to me and it's sort of like there's almost like a scale of this. There is very much a level of unison here, where I learn, you learn, everybody grows. There is an aspect of giving and receiving in this, which has a lot of esoteric resemblance as well. So the fundamentals that we are going to learn are two laws. I'm going to focus on these two, and in each video we're going to introduce some more laws. Law number one is a law of mentalism. Law number two is the law of motion. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to go on for, and the whole idea of this is I'm looking to speak to a certain type of individual. This is not going to be filled with fancy graphics. I'm not looking to capture your attention. This is one where you either stay and you want to learn, and you actually want to understand how to outgrow the tank of life in this instance, or you leave. But ultimately, you want to be taking notes, you want to be pausing this video, and most importantly, if you are leaving comments, and I do know who you are, I want to be following up, and I want to be making sure that you're actually accessing this stuff. So let's go back to that first law, that law of mentalism. Now this is a law taken from the Kybalion. The Kybalion is something that has impacted me greatly, and it was sort of like that next stage. You understand sort of surface level spirituality, you then basically go into like these substrates, you start taking different paths. And I found the Kybalion, and it opens with the law of mentalism, which basically dictates that everything that we see, everything we experience is all a figment of our imagination, it's all of our own mental creation. Now people see this and they are initially taken aback by it, because if we understand that the universe is completely mental, that basically means to a degree everything that we've been told, if you come from like that Western world, is a complete lie. Because so far, if we look at the events leading up to this, I'm currently 25, the idea is that you go to school, you go secondary school, university, job, save money, and you just exist. All of that is a complete lie, because really what life is whatever you determine to be it. It's whatever you think, your thoughts, your belief systems, how your neurons are firing, but regards to what you actually believe to be true, and it's those thoughts that then create a reality in your lens of life. So if we look at the law of mentality, we need to understand that whatever is possible all comes from our thoughts. We need to imagine something before it first manifests itself into real life. Now, manifestation in and of itself, there's going to be some people that are watching this and it's going to be a bit of a buzzword. We're going to save that for another day. I've got a video on this because already a lot of what we look into, especially when we're coming into spirituality, is most people are massively misinterpreting the truth that is out there. The second law is the law of motion. Now this one is really simple to understand. I always want to do these videos where they're easy to digest, because ultimately I'm not the smartest person in the room. I just read a lot of books and I want to understand everything so that when I understand stuff I can translate it to you guys. The law of motion just means that everything is always moving. On a fundamental level, you are not human, we're just energy having a human experience. So what that basically means is energy is vibrating, does vibrations. When we look at that on a granular level, oscillations, something that moves up and it moves down. We then come into the esoteric representation of duality. So if the universe is entirely mental, or your universe is entirely mental, and everything is always in motion, we can basically weaponize these two, or not necessarily weaponize these, but we can equip our own thoughts and our belief systems with these and start to actually make some headway with outgrowing the tank of life. Now the fact that you're watching this video and you're at this moment right now, right here with me, shows that you're at a stage where you're ready for that next stage. You feel like you're actually in a tank and you're sort of wondering what can you do to get to that next level. It doesn't necessarily have to be a level, it could be another situation, it could be a completely new reality, it could literally be everything. Bottom line, you're watching this because you are looking for change. I too am looking for change. That's why I'm reading the books, that's why I'm doing this video, that's why I'm sharing these insights with you. So as I change and shift into new realities, you do the same as well. There's a specific reason why I focused on titling this video Outgrowing the Tank of Life, and that is because everything is always in motion, but society and everything that we've been taught has all led us up to this moment. We are a series of beliefs, we are a series of thoughts that we have done years and years, and it's created this almost genetical hardwiring that's going to be created from our parents and the people around us. It's also going to be created from ourselves, from the stuff that we were exposed to when we were younger, right up to the stuff that you're doing on a day-to-day basis now, forming the habits and the thoughts and the belief systems that is going to open up doors or close doors in years to come. And that basically is going to create a tank, because a tank is our reality. It's what we see. You know, some people, I was thinking about this on the morning, there are some people that have a reality where 15 million a year or 15 million a month is completely normal. They have then exposure to people who are doing 150 million a month. That is their normal. That is what they see in their tank of reality. There's other people where water will be a measure of wealth. There will be people in third world countries where having access to mass amounts of water determines the level of wealth and the status that will allow them to open up and create new opportunities. The whole sort of concept of this tank of life, this sense of reality, this lens that you view stuff with, is completely subjective. And the fact that it's so vast, the fact that it can be so monumentally massive and yet so minutely small, we somewhere sit along that timeline of events, and you need to be determining what is your current tank and how can we actually get out of it. Now, going back to the law of motion, most people are usually threatened by change. We're almost taught, and I can recall this from growing up, always wanted to change stuff, always wanted to have new things, and almost sort of like being suppressed. We're taught to suppress this idea of change, that, you know, going after the things that we want, going after trying new things, it's risky. We shouldn't try this. You should do it this way because I was taught it, and my dad taught me this, and my dad's dad taught me this. And it's almost like this generational curse of not really taking risks and sort of suppressing stuff to play it safe. That is what confines you in your current reality. That's what puts you in this tank. And I'm here to teach you how to get to that. So we are going to get to it. Now, I'm going to give a very basic example. And I don't know whether a lot of you have seen this, but I wanted to sort of go over this because it's easy for me to convey the points. And what we're basically looking at here is animals, or in instance, it would be a shark. Now, remember what we said, handwriting gets a pass because I'm putting you on some good knowledge. Now, the idea with this is a shark in a tank, say that's 7 foot long. That shark, from when it is young, will only ever grow to be the length of that tank. Now, we know that sharks by nature are monumentally massive creatures. They're bigger than any human. They're just massive things, right? But yet, the second that you put it in a tank and we actually determine that that tank is 7 foot long, we basically control how that shark will grow. It will only ever be that tank. It can't outgrow it. It will just stay there, and it will just either die because it can't be in the right environment. But bottom line, it's never going to grow out of that tank. It physically can't happen. So what we need to do is look at that from that shark's perspective, and we basically want to look at how we can get it from a 7 foot tank to a 12 foot tank to then eventually the ocean. And we want to look at changes being progressive. Everything is in motion, but that does not mean that it needs to happen monumentally all at once, straight away. Not everything is going to be that big bang light bulb moment. A lot of stuff is happening whether we see it or not. An idea with making the subconscious conscious is that eventually we can look at these changes and, you know, digest, extract lessons, look at whatever we can do so that that change is constantly happening. You need to look at this and think changing over small increments is much better than looking and waiting for that big leap, because then you're just going to be inhibiting change. So going back to the shark, the idea here is that we need to look at what we can do to get to that next stage. And it's all going to be composed of going back to law 1, which is a law of mentality. So again, I'm not going to sort of continue to push on the shark, and the shark has to think of belief systems and mantras. That's where we sort of begin to get into like the laughy stuff, the stuff that is just going to take the seriousness away from this channel, which we do not want to do. So shark aside, really what you sort of want to do now is pause the video, and I sort of want to start looking at you as an individual. What stage are you at? What size is your tank? Now, that's a pretty deep question to ask. I'm basically asking, what is the current state of your life? For the most part, it's not going to be where you want it to be, because as humans, we naturally want more. If everything is in movement, we are energy that is constantly moving and shifting. It is humanly natural to want new things to constantly change. This is something that for years I struggled with, because I always thought I was bad for wanting new things, to be better, to make more, to do more, to become more. But as I've sort of grown older, looked and researched into my books, it's literally a birthright. We are meant to change. We are meant to. The fact that we come into this world as a baby and end it as an elderly person shows that change and progression and motion is the very essence of what constitutes that human experience. And as we look at this tank, a very simple question to ask yourself is, what do you consider normal? And I'm constantly redefining what my normal is. And the reason why I want to start with that question is because that's going to set your baseline. When I mention this law of motion, that is basically vibration. Things are always moving, but this vibration, when we look at that naturally, just sort of like if something is vibrating over there, that just looks like it's making a little humming sound and it's just moving a little bit. If I leave it on the table, it's just going to move over there. On a more subatomic level, on a granular level, it is going up and it's going down. These are moving all in different ways. In fact, I'm going to show you something. We're going to go back to BTEC science. Now what we've got here is the structure of water, and it's laughable at how bad this is, but I promise you it's going to make sense. So we go back to what science looks like. we've got particles inside these boxes. Now these are all the same thing. This is all water. We've got a solid, we've got a gas, and we've got a liquid. Oh, this one would essentially be a liquid and this one would be a gas, right? So we've got 3 different states, we've got 3 different physical representations of energy. But what is it that actually makes them the same? What is it that makes them literally the same thing? The only thing that makes these different is their vibratory rate. Again, if we look at the structure here, the particles here that make it a solid are fixed, they're rigid, they barely move. That's what gives it that firm structure. If we look into what makes it gas, they're essentially here, they're loose, they're moving around, they can bounce. It's got that free-forming nature that allows it to just shift formlessly. Into a liquid, we can see that there's some rigidness, but again, it's got that fluidity that's going to allow it to behave and inhibit behaviour like a liquid would. But bottom line, these are all one and the same, and that is exactly where motion comes into this place, because everything is basically based off of our vibratory rate. And so by looking at what you class as normal, you can look at what your vibratory rate is. I'm not necessarily saying that you are going to be shifted into a liquid, to a gas, to a solid. The whole idea of that was to show you that at each stage, you're always going to be the same version of you. Your name is always going to be the name. You're always going to still inhibit that same human experience. You are always going to be who you are right now. But the idea is that by redefining your normal, you can create these quantum shifts, these leaps into new realities. You know, I could be the same person I am today, but with a 250 million net worth. I've got 10 Lambos, a car for every day of the week, watches galore. I'm still going to be me in a sense, but my actual reality, what I actually see, my lens of life, that is what changes. And that's what I want you to consider changing. And it all starts with redefining what you consider normal. And that's going to be a tough stage, because what you've got to do is challenge a lot of either self-limiting beliefs or beliefs that people have put forwards onto you. So if you're examining a lot of doubt, wondering that you're not good enough, you're going into situations where you're not really feeling confident, you go into situations, and I speak from experience, you go into a situation, something happens, and you leave that situation thinking, I wish I would have said that. That is what we want to be changing. And wherever I'm teaching new things, I'm always going to try to back it up with some form of neurological science or something that is going to be backed from a study. And when we begin to start breaking apart self-limiting beliefs and redefining your normal, we look at what's called Hebb's law. Now, Hebb's law teaches us that neurons that no longer fire together, wire together. Everything that has led you up to this moment is a series of belief systems that you've taught yourself, learned from exposure, or been taught by somebody else. Teachers, school, parents, friends, whatever it may be. And if you don't like something that is there to serve you, something that is holding you back, doubt, somebody else has put that voice there, because you have not done that. That is something within you that has been formed by either someone else or something else that no longer serves you. So you need to be able to look to let that go if you want to be able to outgrow and get to that next stage. So how do you do that? You have to start creating new thought beliefs. But what most people think, and this was only a recent revelation of mine, like we're talking a couple of weeks to maybe a couple of months, most people look at unwanted energy, unwanted thoughts, and what happens is they just say stop. They literally just say stop. And if we go back to the law of motion, that it is physically not possible. You cannot just stop something that doesn't serve you, because it has to go, it has to flow somewhere. Energy cannot be destroyed, it's then transferred or moved on to a next stage, it is shifted. So if we look at that, that law of motion, that physical law of nature, we can't just stop something, we've got to redirect, realign and refocus it. So going back to Hebb's law, if neurons are firing a certain way, the neurons are firing, they're attaching onto those synapses, and they're creating and sending signals within your brain to your body to do certain actions, do certain things. We basically got to be able to redefine those. So you've got to be able to think, I don't want to think in that way, but this is how my divine self would act. So therefore, this is how I'm going to recenter my imagination. This is how I'm going to recenter what I'm thinking about, what I'm feeling, and what I'm doing in the sense of reality. So again, let's go back to those simple examples of, doubt, people make you feel like you're not good enough, going into situations where you want to be able to say something, but the words just aren't coming out. Hebb's law teaches that we can then go into that situation. If somebody says something that you don't like, call it out, sit with it. You have to be able to confront these things. Again, you can't just go into these situations and expect to sort of like shift into this new reality, outgrow your tank by just running away from it. You have to be able to confront these things. It's not going to be a comfortable stage. Growth is uncomfortable. Going back to that shark would literally have to be physically picked out of the water where it physically can't breathe to be able to put into a bigger tank. So it's got to go through that period of severe uncomfortableness to get into that bigger tank where it can continue growing. You are the exact same. You are literally the exact same process, and that's what you're going to go through. So if you've got a situation that is no longer serving you, you've got to feel more confident, you want to be able to build a business that is actually going to thrive and win, you've got to look at what you're either not confronting, ignoring and severely sort of neglecting in your mind. You could be pushing it back, that generally is where your work is. That's a very famous Stoic saying from Epictetus: where your doubt is and where you're sort of putting it off, that is where your task is. And I've absolutely butchered the saying, but the point still stands. When you're redefining your normal and you're creating these new belief systems, more often than not, the answer is staring at you right in front of your face. And I'm constantly doing this myself. I'm looking at stuff that, what am I procrastinating on? What am I putting off? What am I saying I'll do tomorrow? It's so sneaky the way that this stuff sneaks in, because it's always going to be, I'll do it tomorrow, give me a couple of minutes. There's a very not famous book, it's a very well-known and impactful book, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And really what it teaches is that all we have is the power of now. So when you're creating these new belief systems and you're looking at sort of the stuff that you're putting off, the stuff that you want to be saying, the stuff that you should be doing that is in alignment with either your divine self or your desired reality, you cannot wait. It's the more that you wait, the bigger distance that you create, because you're not vibrationally aligning with it. You have to look at it and think, I'm going to do that now because this is how I would act in my ideal reality. And the fact that you do that, the fact that you're thinking that, the universe already has all the resources for it. It's already existing. We came into this world with everything that we already needed. Everything that you have is within. I've got a video that's going to take you through some of the tattoo tours, and this will teach us some esoteric representations that everything you want is within. The journey is within, but why? We're going to go into that. So now what I want to do is step away from some teachings and start looking into some physical stuff that you're going to encounter on a day-to-day basis. So what we're going to look at here is tasks and basically your perception. Now this is one of many different things that you're going to see, and what I'm focusing on here is how do you actually view tasks. Most people, I'm going to use the gym for example, because the gym is a big part of my life, and I'm getting ready to go tomorrow morning, right? And this is from personal experience. This is something I used to do. So my gym routine is split into 2 sessions. It's going to be weights in the morning and some form of cardio in the evening. That could be running, biking, Stairmaster, which has been most recently. And when I was running, I used to do these runs, and what would happen is I would need this hardcore motivation, something like David Goggins screaming at me, some next level like motivational thread. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely used to get that task done. But you see, what happened was I created a relationship with that task where that task was above me. Every time I was going to do a run, I always felt like I was going on a run and I was running uphill constantly. Even though the 5k was literally just around the block, it was on a straight road, it was easy. What was happening was I was having to use music to be able to get me through that task. I'd put it on a pedestal. My perception was that that task was above me and I had to constantly overcome it. Now, there is truth in that, because growth is going to be uncomfortable. But the idea with outgrowing your tank and defining your new normal is that you need to be bigger than your environment, because if you're constantly small in your environment and you're confined by your reality, how can you ever change? That's like trying to change fire with fire or fight fire with fire. It does not make sense. There has to be a different cause for there to be a different effect. So when you're looking at these tasks, start thinking it's just a task. It is just what it is. You need to view it as objectively as possible. So when I go on a run, when I go to the gym, I wake up early. It's just waking up at a number time. It's just waking up and going to the gym. I'm just doing it casually as you do. And the fact that you sort of like depersonify, you sort of like delabeling these and stripping it down to bare basics, you see it for what it is, which is just an opportunity to change. There's something in there that is there, especially if it serves you. There's something in there that is either going to teach you, give you an opportunity to grow, or vibration align you with what it is you want to do, become, or have in your new sense of reality. So looking at this, change how you look at things. I do this in a very, very simple way. Start learning new stuff. Don't necessarily start multitasking, because you always want to be focused in reality. But when you're looking at your task perception, just do something else that's going to take your attention away from the task itself. When I'm doing cardio, very simple example, I don't listen to music. In fact, whenever it comes to any of my training, I only listen to music very, very rarely, either if other people are in the car with me, or if I have done something as like a little reward, which is few and far between, because I'm always changing. Change is a reward. But that aside, I look at cardio, which naturally is a challenging thing, the way that I do it. But what I do is I learn a different language. So I speak 3 languages, and I want to speak 5. I want to speak more than 5. What I do is I look at that and I basically sort of shift it so that whilst I'm doing the cardio, I'm also learning another language. So what happens is, as I'm mentally engaged with learning a new language and taking on new pieces of stuff that I can apply with my tutor, I'm then obviously doing the cardio, and all of a sudden, because I'm focusing on this one thing, the cardio actually becomes kind of minuscule. It's like, oh, I'm just doing 45 minutes on the Stairmaster whilst learning another language. Psychologically, I either get on the same level playing field or I get above it, because it's just easy. You know, if you can find, I do 45 minutes on the Stairmaster, all I will then do is just find a 45-minute podcast or a 45-minute video it will take me through that duration so I can come away whilst learning another language, ticking the box of doing the cardio. Both of those I can assess, look at, right, this is my reality, this is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. Does this serve me? Yes. Does this help me? Yes. Is this going to create opportunity to grow where I can change my reality? Yes. So I need to be able to be better than those so that I can continue to redefine my normal and start getting to these new levels. The final note that I'm going to wrap this up on is just be careful of what you give attention to and what you put a pedestal on. Energy goes where attention flows, or I think it would be the other way around, so we've completely butchered that, is energy flows where attention goes. So what we basically mean when we look at that is you need to look at what you're focusing on and start thinking, does it really deserve the magnitude that you're giving it? And ultimately, when you can begin to learn to put it on the same playing field or get above it, that's when it becomes easier to do. So again, we'll wrap the video there. I have no idea how long this has gone on for, but if you enjoyed it, let me know.